Hi everyone, Chiante Jones here, financial coach and founder of Dollars and Change. And today I have a really good topic to talk about. We're going to talk about the real cost of credit card debt. So, the real cost of credit card debt. And I'm just going to jump right in and start talking about this. Um, so, comment and let me know you're here, either live on the replay. So, I want to know you're here, say hello. But I'm going to jump right in. So, I'm sure the first thing you think about when I say the cost of credit card debt, the first thing that'll come to mind is like literally the cost of credit card debt, which is the interest. So credit cards are relatively easy to access, relatively easy to get approved for, but they are an expensive form of funding. Currently, the average interest rate on a credit card is about 16.61%, and that's according to information from the Federal Reserve, which tracks a lot of that data. But we know that oftentimes your interest rate could be way higher than that. And that's particularly true for, like store branded credit cards. So like you got your Kohl's card or JCPenney card, those type of cards. A lot of times the credit interest rate on those are a lot higher. So, they'll lure you in with the, special promotions or the discounts and sales and everything. But, I have to ask, is that 15% worth the 25% interest rate that you'll pay, for anything that's on the card if you don't pay the balance off? So you may have saved 15% that day at the register, but you end up paying way more in interest on the credit card. So a lot of times it's not even worth it. And then you do have the branded cards that have the promotions, with the 0% interest for a certain period of time. So, I'm sure you've heard of these, the 6 months, 12 months, same as cash. But what they often don't tell you is that typically the interest on those cards start accruing from day one. And if you don't pay off the balance within the promotional period, they will add that interest to the card. They'll capitalize it to the balance. And so then guess what? You will not only be paying for the balance, you'll be paying interest on interest. And so how awesome is that? You have capitalized interest. And even if you have like just a regular, bank credit card that has a 0% interest, as their introductory rate, a lot of times you'll see that. They'll have 0% for a period of time. And that's only helpful if you actually pay off whatever you purchase while the interest rate is 0%. Otherwise, you're going to pay whatever the actual rate is on the card. And a lot of people get caught up with this and, with balance transfers. A lot of times you'll see those 0% for balance transfers. First of all, typically there's a fee for a balance transfer, so pay attention to that. But also the other thing is with a balance transfer, if you don't pay off the balance that you transferred over within the 0% interest period, it's really like essentially like you end up in the same boat, just on a different credit card. So it's important to understand that credit cards are structured in a way that keep you in the cycle. It's a very slippery slope when it comes to credit cards, and you can get into a lot of trouble really fast if they're not used responsibly. And it's because it's so easy to just swipe the card and make a minimum payment, and to pay for something that you really can't afford or really don't have the money for. And a lot of times, the creditors will continue to increase your credit limits. If you're paying on time, they'll increase your credit limits because it is very profitable for them to do that. They are making money off of you, and that's why they do that. They make money off of the interest that you are that you're paying, and they consider you a good or credit-worthy customer because you are actually paying that minimum balance on time. But I want to put this in perspective some, so I want to put some numbers around this with an example. So most of actually, I'm really glad to hear that. So most of the time, most of my clients, they tend to have 5-figure credit card debt. Not all of them, but 5 figures. So for this example, I'll use $10,000, so 10K, as since that's the lowest 5-figure number that there is. And as I mentioned earlier, the current kind of prevailing rate right now for credit cards is about 16.61%, based on some data. So I'll use that as the rate. And so minimum payment terms can vary from card to card. So I'll, a common one that you'll see is the interest plus 1% of the balance, or a minimum payment of $25. So whichever is greater of those two. So I'll use that as a term. Sometimes you'll see where they'll have 2% of the balance to 5% of the balance or something like that. It's like I say, just varies from card. But I'll use the 1% of the balance plus interest as my minimum payment standard. and then $25 once it gets to that low. So based on this scenario of having a minimum payment on $10,000 in credit card debt at the 16.61%, it will take you 24 years to pay off that car, and you will end up paying $12,922 in interest. So that's over 2 decades, and you'll pay more than double what you originally charged to the card in the first place. That's 30% more in interest than what you have originally put on the card, like what you originally charged on the card. Y'all, that is crazy. That is asinine. If someone offered you that deal, would you take it? You'd be like, no. You look at them like they were crazy, right? But if you get caught up with credit cards, that's essentially what you're doing. That's the deal you are taking. So if you're putting stuff on a credit card and then you're just making the minimum payments, that is essentially what it is. It will take you, like I said, decades to pay that off, and the credit cards are structured that way. So just be careful about getting caught up in those. So I'll get off of that soapbox. Another cost of debt is, so you think about the credit card that impacting your financial well-being, your financial wellness, but it can impact your overall wellness. So carrying debt takes up a lot of mental space. You're anxious, and you can be anxious and stressed about paying it off. You feel regret and shame about decisions you made in the past, about getting into that situation in the first place. You may feel guilty for continuing to use the card for purchases, or guilty in knowing that you really kind of need the card to make up shortfalls. Or you may feel just overwhelmed by the amount of debt that you find yourself in, and not knowing where to start or how to really get control of things and dig your way out. Debt can also impact your relationships. For marriages, money is one of the primary reasons for divorce, or just in relationships or whatever. Money can just be a really contentious factor in relationships. Stress can impact your productivity at your job, how you interact with other people. It's just really stressful. So all of this takes a toll on you. And so while that has impact on your mentally, it can also have an impact and manifest physically. And we know that, I'm sure you know that stress can be the driver of many different health issues. It could cause it could trigger some, it could make things worse. So, like I said, it has a really big impact on your mental and physical well-being. So it's not just a financial impact, it's also just your overall wellness that, carrying debt or credit card debt can have. And then, to me, when I think about this, you think about somebody has low income, and it's one thing if you think about somebody who's low income and they're, trying to figure out how to pay bills. But when you're making really good money, and then you still find yourself, stressed out and living paycheck to paycheck, it's really? I'm making more money and I'm still struggling? To me, that's a clear sign that something is not working and something has to change to, adjust that situation. Because if you're making really good money, there's no reason why you should continue to feel the stress. That means something needs to be adjusted and something needs to be worked out. Okay? Excuse me. So another cost of debt is the cost of giving up the freedom and the flexibility of choice. So the freedom to choose is very powerful. So choosing whether to do something or not, choosing whether to buy something or not, choosing whether to stay at a job you like that you don't like or not. So the power to choose is amplified the less money, or the lack of money, less of that being a dominant factor. So if money is not really a factor and you're making the decision, you have more power in that choice. And so, credit card debt or having debt leads to lost opportunities and limited options. So one area you can see that is within your credit, just your credit. So if your utilization of credit is tied up in credit card debt, it can prevent you or hinder you from being able to get other things that may be more pertinent that you need credit for. So whether that be a new house or a car, or whatever. So those are more productive things to get credit for. But yet if your utilization, which is really the amount of debt you have outstanding, if it's tied up in the credit card debt, then that hinders you from being able to do more productive things. And utilization is the second biggest factor that impacts your credit score. So then your credit score could then have an impact on your available terms for other things that you try to get. And so the better your score is, the better terms you have. But if you have high utilization from these credit cards, then that becomes an issue and that's costing you in the long run. So another area is, where I say less opportunities, limited options, is for the use of your cash flow. If your cash flow is tied up in significant monthly payments on the credit cards and it's not available to do other more productive things or things that are more important to you, you can only spend that money one time. So how are you supposed to make money moves when you are still stuck paying on past purchases on your credit card for stuff that doesn't even matter anymore? Because typically a lot of times it's stuff that doesn't even matter. And sometimes that's just being able to make the minimum payment, depending on how high your balances are. Like sometimes it could be a struggle to make minimum payments on things as things start to kind of spiral and get higher. So you're making these minimum payments that's tying up your cash flow from things that you really want to be doing, and then you're not even really seeing progress in getting rid of the debt. And you're just doing enough to keep it in good standing, right? So as you can see, like it's not just a financial impact from having credit card debt. It can really, the impact is far spread with money. Like it impacts really kind of every area of your life. It could have some type of direct or indirect impact. And so I just wanted to come on today and point out the real cost of credit card debt, because a lot of times people just think about interest. And even with the interest, I'm sure that example, that's like I said, that's crazy to think that you're paying way more than what you actually even charge to it. And is that even worth it? But so like the interest is one thing, just to get a grasp of that, but then it really is other non-financial things that can be impacted as well. So you tell me, is it worth it? Is it worth it, y'all? It's not worth it. So just think about that as you think about your situation and whether it's time to do something about your credit card debt. It is. You don't have to stay like that. So if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired of dealing with your credit card debt or your debt and you're ready to get your money under control, reach out. Let's talk. If I have a couple of spots open right now for coaching, so like I said, just reach out and talk to me. Let's see if I'm able to help with your situation, and if my coaching program is a good fit for whatever you have going on. But that's what I have for you guys today. Really think about that, the real cost of credit card debt. How much is your credit card debt really costing you? And as you can see, it's way more than just interest. Okay, so you all have a good weekend, and I will talk to you next time.